I think you said at the end, which I agree with, that you can't think of what presumptions and proper presumptions would be absent thinking about the wider structure of the government and the why there's a division into an executive, a legislative, a judicial branch, um, and thinking about checks and balances and why that was thought important and how that in practice would be carried out. And I, in my reading of the dissent, and so Kagan's dissent, it comes out pretty clearly the way that she thinks about it, which is that so if you have the presumption that you defer to the federal agencies, there's a kind of what would justify that is we know government has all kinds of powers, and yeah, okay, we have to get clear on exactly what those powers are in this instance. But it's we know it has a lot and a lot of power, and so let it decide sort of the contours of that. Versus if you think, no, the government doesn't have any power except what's actually and explicitly delegated to it, then it becomes, if you can't find that it's really been delegated, it hasn't been, like, the presumption is then it hasn't been delegated, versus the presumption is no, the government has this power unless we can find it explicitly, it's sort of prohibited to the government to have this power. And so when they defer to the federal agencies to something that's permissible, it, like, it's in, I think of it as in that wider context. And she brings up, I thought one of the things in the dissent that's revealing, just the formulation in the way that she formed it's in thinking, and she calls it, this is not really deciding what the law is, it's policy making. And she describes it like that. The task is, so this is about sort of the power of a federal agency. Quote, the task is less one of construing a text than of balancing competing goals and values, close quote. And that's the policy making is, well, I've got to balance competing goals and values, and one administration might do it in a certain way and the next administration does it in a different way. This is why it can change from administration to administration, and the courts are supposed to say, okay, that's permissible, we're not going to do anything about that, even though the agency's own interpretation of the law is changing from administration to administration, because it's just a variation on how they're balancing this what competing goals and values. But there's a real question, is like, is that law anymore? Like, and so what does policy making mean, and how is that an executive function? Like, why is that not a legislative function to make policy? But she's trying to put it in the executive branch, that like it's and that seems like that's like a core issue in terms of separation of powers and how to think of these various branches.